In today's show, we're going to talk about 3 overlooked issues that could have a huge impact on your retirement. So we're going to talk about what those issues are and then planning strategies to help you overcome these issues to help make sure your retirement's on the right track.
Welcome to the Your Life, Your Money podcast with Scott Searins, teaching you how to thrive in life, wealth, and retirement.
Welcome into another episode of The Retirement Show, all about your life, your money, and your taxes. I'm your host, Scott Searins, and my goal is to help you thrive in life, wealth, and retirement. Have you heard the saying by Ben Franklin, small leaks will sink a great ship? That's what we're going to talk about today, 3 overlooked issues that could sink your retirement. You know, in boating, you see some water in the boat, you might think no big deal, but as Ben Franklin said, a small leak, right, that continuously leaks and leaks and leaks and leaks over time could sink the boat, could put that boat underwater. And so that's what we want to talk about today, 3 issues that if continuously overlooked, thought of as no big deal. Maybe I'll take care of it next year. Maybe I'll address that in the future. That could sink then your retirement, potentially hurt your retirement. So today we're going to talk about those issues. Then we're going to talk about the planning strategies to help you avoid those issues. So with that, let's just dive right in. So the first issue, if not planned for, if not thought of, if not created a strategy created around it, could cause some potential issues, or I'll say problems, in your retirement, and that is longevity. A lot of people fail to think about how long they might live. And looking at, history as far as like how long your parents live can be helpful, but could also be hurtful. Here's what I mean by this. So according to macrotrends.com, the average lifespan in the year 2000 was 76.75 years. In 2010, 78.49 years. And then in 2023, 79.11 years. So why do I just bring these up? Well, the overall trend is up. People are living longer. Maybe you've heard as well that if you're a couple, if both spouses are still living in your 70s, there's a great chance then one spouse is going to live into the 80s or into the 90s or longer. The other thing that I want you to think about is just think about your home, think about your life, think about the technology that you use. When you first started using a computer and now what computers look like in your life, what internet looks like in your life, what you're able to look up in your life. Think about your phone, right? And how that's evolved. AI, artificial intelligence, and now how that's coming into play. Robotics, maybe you've seen that on the news of different things that are being able to be achieved with robotics. Why do I bring all this technology up when I'm talking about longevity? I want you to think about how quickly each and every one of those items has evolved. Like the phone, there used to be the bag phone in the car, then there is these flip phones, then there's the rather large phones. Then we've got these just really small phones, that we can hold into our hands. Next thing you know, phones have internet and email and everything on them that you could ever imagine that you could utilize to take care of your life, and how quickly that has evolved. And the reason I bring that up is because it just shows that technology is evolving at a really, really fast rate. Technology is used in healthcare, and so to me, technology and healthcare are getting better and better at a faster and faster rate, which makes me wonder then, will the average lifespan start increasing at a faster rate as well? So overall, longevity here continues to increase, and will it increase at an even faster rate than it is today? So all of that to say, do you have a plan that's going to last 15, 20, 30 years or more based on whenever you retired? planning until age 79, right? So right now it says, okay, macrotrends.com. And again, I'll link to all of these in the show notes. You can go to lifemoneyshow.com. Again, lifemoneyshow.com. You'll see all of the different links and websites that I talk about in the show notes. So they're saying the current average lifespan of somebody in the United States in 2023 is 79.11 years. Planning until age 79 could be a really big mistake. And so let's just talk about, instead of making the mistakes, instead of overlooking some of these issues that could sink your retirement, right? Because if you plan till age 79.11 and you spend money like that is the age that you're going to live to, and then you live till age 85 or 90 or 95, which is over 15 years longer, will your money last as long as you will? So what are some planning strategies then, instead of overlooking this issue? What are some planning strategies that you should take into account when it comes to planning for your retirement so these issues don't become a problem? Well, first and foremost, if you're still working, one of the things that you can do is save more. Save more money, add more, contribute more to your retirement savings, to your non-retirement savings, contribute more so that way you have more to help you last till a later age in life. Also, another planning strategy is you can run your plan through a later age. Instead of running your plan through, current average years or lifespan, what about running your plan through age 90? Age 95, age 100. Maybe do age 95 and then just do age 100 as a backup, as I don't want to call it worst case scenario, because the longer you live, a healthier life, that's awesome. But kind of run it as a backup scenario. Add 5 more years to your plan as that backup scenario just to see, does it all still work out? So that's a couple things. Let's just say you do run it to age 95 or age 100 and your plan doesn't necessarily look like it might work out based on your current retirement age. Well, then you can always retire at a later age. Retiring at a later age takes the pressure off your retirement savings because it's less time that you're withdrawing from that retirement savings. Let's see, a few other planning strategies when it comes to longevity. If you're single, you could delay taking Social Security as long as you possibly can. Every year that you delay taking your Social Security, it grows by 8% until you finally do decide to take it. So delay taking your Social Security. That's going to give you that lifetime-like pension with a cost of living adjustment. If you're married, I would recommend delaying taking one of the 2 Social Securities as long as you possibly can. Typically, I recommend delaying the higher of the 2. The reason for that is that if and when one of the 2 spouses pass away, you keep one of the 2 Social Securities and you keep the higher of the 2. A few more planning strategies dealing with longevity is I do recommend having a little bit of a higher equity focus in your plan. A lot of times when people move into retirement, they can actually get too conservative. They say, oh boy, I don't need all of this risk anymore in my plan. They make too much of a shift into fixed income. They get too conservative. They don't have enough money growing for their future. So having equities in your plan is important. Maybe having a higher equity focus in your plan than you would have normally can also be a help in having your money last as long as you do. And then the last strategy that I'll bring up here is what I call as a dynamic income strategy. You may have heard me on the show before talk about income guardrails. So having an income strategy where you know to make adjustments based on longevity, based on the market ups and downs, will help you find that balance between not worrying about running out, but also not leaving a mattress full of money behind. So there's some strategies. So instead of overlooking this or not thinking about it or delaying thinking about it or wondering if you've put together the right plan, so hopefully those strategies help you in planning and overcoming the potential issue of longevity in your plan. All right, moving on to issue number 2 that could slowly sink that ship, that leak that could slowly sink that retirement ship if not properly planned for. And issue number 2 is inflation creep. Now, here's what I mean by that. Inflation is the cost of goods and services going up on time. Now, based on historical data, I thought I'd kind of try to put this into real life use here. Based on historical data, this is calculator.net. Again, I'll have all of the links in lifemoneyshow.com. Just click on the show notes. 20 years ago, what you needed $1,000 to buy would now cost you $16.58 and 20 cents to buy based on historical inflation data. Let's just go back 10 years. 10 years ago, $1,000 in buying power in 2013. Today, you would need $1,309.72 to buy that same item, right? Or to buy that same goods and services, let's say. Not necessarily the same item, but that same goods and services. So my point here is that cost of goods and services is going up over time. So what your money will buy you today, that same amount of money will buy you less in the future. Or another way to look at it is to live your same lifestyle today, you're going to need more money in the future to live that same lifestyle. According to the JP Morgan Guide to the Markets, again, I'll have the link in our show notes and at lifemoneyshow.com in the show notes. The 50-year average for inflation is 3.9%. So let's go with that. Let's go with this example. Let's just say it was 3.9% straight inflation at 3.9% for years and years and years and years. Goods and services that cost you $1,000 today, in 10 years, you need $1,466.07 for that same goods and services. In 15 years, and I'm just going to round here, you need $1,775. And in 20 years, again, $1,000 for goods and services today. In 20 years, at 3.9% inflation, you're going to need $2,149 for that same goods and services. Think about that. In 20 years, if we had 3.9% inflation each and every year, $1,000 today, you're going to need $2,149 in the future. Now, inflation is not at a flat, predictable number like the 3.9% average. That's why they call it an average. It's an average over the last 50 years. And if you go to the website actually and take a look at that map, you'll see that it includes years of 9%, of 8%, of 7%, of some really high inflation that we've had recently and that we had in the past. And then there's years that are below 2%, below 1%. Actually, there's probably some years in there of negative inflation as well, where the cost of goods and services were actually going down, all based on the economic cycle and economic conditions. So it's not going to be that flat 1%. I don't want you to get in your mind that, oh my gosh, in 20 years I'm going to need double the money that I'm going to need today. It's all going to be based on the economic cycle. Just like the stock market is unpredictable, just like we don't know how long we're going to live, we don't know what inflation is going to do tomorrow or the next day. However, what we do know is that if you look at the long term, the average trend is in the upward direction, and just like it says here, the 50-year average trend is 3.9%, where we know that we'll have times above and times below that. So if you were to ignore inflation, what that could potentially mean, meaning you put no inflation in your retirement plan. You think that if you need, $5,000 a month to live today, it's going to be $5,000 a month to live in 10 years and 20 years from now. Well, you could be pretty disappointed. And if your plan was solely based on that, as we'd kind of gone over here, you might have to reduce the lifestyle goods and services that you're going to be able to buy in the future, because that $5,000 just won't buy you the same amount that it will buy today. So it's important from a planning standpoint. Let's talk about the planning strategies here. First off is that you include inflation in your plan. Now, this is always a tough thing to do because you can just look at the average number and say, hey, should we include 4% in our plan for inflation? Well, you also have to kind of think about lifestyle, that some years will be above, some years will be below, and then think about lifestyle throughout your retirement. You're going to have those go-go years. You're going to have those maybe slower go years where you're not going out and spending as much and doing the vacation things that you might do earlier on in your retirement. And then you're going to have those years where you just don't want to go out as well, right? You're just going to probably have those years where maybe health has changed and then, you're staying at home. Now, of course, in those years, health costs might go up. So this is where you want to include inflation in your plan, but you also want to kind of wrap some different things around your plan where your retirement spending might be more upfront and then might go a little bit less later on, and then a little bit less later on from that, but then your health expenses go up. So maybe picking a number a little bit lower than that is okay, but then testing out the real inflation number is, the real average at the time is good too, because that way your plan will work in, best case, worst case scenarios, everything like that. The other planning strategy to help you when it comes to inflation and the cost of goods and services going up over time is having equities in your portfolio. Equities have shown to outpace inflation over a long period of time. So having equities in your portfolio, one, helps with longevity, right? Helps your money growing as long as you do. And then two, helps you keep up with inflation, the cost of goods and services going up over time. So having equities in your portfolio is super helpful when it comes to your retirement. I do realize equities come with a little bit more volatility, the ups and the downs in the market, but it is a way to help outpace inflation and keep your money growing as long as you will. So item number 2 there, inflation, don't ignore it. Make sure your plan has it covered so it isn't part of sinking that retirement ship. All right, our third and final issue that we feel like can get overlooked. Now, if you've listened to this podcast for a while, we're not overlooking the issue on this podcast. It's probably a focus on your mind, just like it is on my mind to help reduce these over time. But unfortunately for some people, it does get overlooked. It gets overthought. It just gets ignored, and that is rising taxes. As you know, our goal is to help people reduce taxes. We talk about it a lot on the show here of strategies to help reduce and minimize the taxes in your retirement. But it can be overlooked. Would it sink the ship? Probably wouldn't sink the retirement ship, but it can have a huge impact on your future, and here's potentially how. So most people have saved into their 401ks or IRAs, money that hasn't been taxed yet. So every penny that you take out of that IRA, 401k, the withdrawals that you're going to utilize for your retirement income, each and every dollar as it comes out of those accounts needs to be taxed, and it's going to be taxed at your ordinary income tax rate. So if you have $1 million, if you have $1.5 million, if you have $2 million, you really have $1 million less taxes. You really have $1.5 million less taxes. You really have $2 million less taxes in your 401ks or IRAs. Now, to explain a little bit about the U.S. tax system, it's what we call a progressive tax system. What does that mean? Well, dependent on your income, so much of your money gets taxed in different brackets. So you may have heard somebody say, well, you're in the 12% tax bracket, you're in the 22% tax bracket, you're in the 24% tax bracket. Well, when they say that, that's the tax rate of some of the money of your income, but not all of it. And here's what I mean. Depending on how much income that you have coming in, and let's just say you were told that you were in the 24% tax bracket, well, actually, some of your money is taxed at 10%, some is taxed at 12%, some is taxed at 22%, and then some is taxed at 24%. So when they say you're in the 24% bracket, it doesn't mean that all of your money is taxed at 24%. The progressive system means that some's taxed at 10, 12, 22, and then the last portion in the 24%. So if you're wondering how much gets taxed at each portion, you can go online and take a look at that. Not part of today's show, but just so you know what factors into how much gets taxed would be your income. So that's wages, rental income, pensions, would be dividends and interest. And then that last one, the 401k and IRA withdrawals. That's why I said if you have $1 million sitting in your IRA or 401k, you really don't have $1 million. You have $1 million less taxes. And so, again, back to the progressive tax system. Somebody says you're in the 24% tax bracket, well, or 22%. Your effective rate, which is the average rate once they kind of do all of those different bunches of taxes under that, could be much less than what your tax bracket actually is. Then another couple things that I want you to think about from a whole tax standpoint is remember that you'll have to take required minimum distributions sometime in your 70s based upon when you were born. And the other thing to think about is remember if you're a couple listening to this, one spouse passes away, most likely the remaining spouse will jump up a tax bracket because a single making the same amount as a couple gets taxed at a higher rate. So, knowing all of this, let me just walk you through an example of what I mean and how rising taxes could potentially impact your retirement. Let's just say you've got $1 million in your IRA. We're also just from a hypothetical standpoint here going to say you're not going to get any sort of growth in your retirement account throughout your future. And then after we put everything together in that progressive tax system, your effective rate, so the average rate of all of those different bunches of taxes, your effective rate is 10%. Again, that's the average rate. So we're just going to say every time that you're taking money out of your IRA account here, you're going to get taxed at that average rate of 10%, or you need to withhold 10%. So what does that mean? Well, on that $1 million, an effective rate of 10% would mean over your lifetime there, you'd have taxes of $100,000. And so you really don't own $1 million. You have $1 million less taxes, so say around $900,000 that you actually own. Here's how rising taxes can impact your future. And in fact, if Congress lets the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expire at the end of 2025, we know that taxes are going to go up. But let's just say, based on rising taxes, everything goes up 5%. So when you look at your effective tax rate or average tax rate, instead of being 10% like it was before, now it's 15%. It goes up 5%. Well, what does that mean? On your $1 million, instead of $100,000 in taxes, you now are going to owe $150,000 in taxes. And you now only have $850,000 to live off of versus the $900,000 before. So $50,000 less for your future and for your lifestyle. That's how rising taxes can make an impact on your future. Those IRAs, those 401ks, those 403bs that haven't been taxed yet, if taxes go up, it's going to give you less to live on in your future. So let's talk about some planning strategies on this last one so it's not as big of an impact on your future. Taxes can't be 100% avoided, but what we can do is put strategies in place to help minimize them. So first and foremost, if you're planning for retirement, I would factor in tax increases throughout retirement. Maybe kind of like you're factoring in inflation, you want to factor in inflation on taxes in your retirement. If you're still working, you may want to look at where you're contributing your money to. If you're contributing to that IRA and to that 401k, should you maybe switch and start contributing to the Roth IRA and the Roth 401k and the Roth 403b, where you pay tax today, but then all of your growth is tax-free and all of your withdrawals are tax-free. If you're still working or retired, you might want to look at Roth conversions, getting that money out of the IRA and 401k. Now remember, when you do that, you have to pay tax today and you convert it over to the Roth IRA. And then last here is you've always heard me talk about tax diversification. So one of the things that you might want to do is save into a brokerage account, or if you're already saving into a brokerage account, the other thing that you want to do is focus on long-term gains versus short-term gains. Short-term gains get taxed at your ordinary income rate, where long-term gains get taxed at a more favorable rate. So if you have non-retirement accounts, or if you don't have a non-retirement account, it might be in your best interest to potentially start one And then if you do have one, my thought process and the planning strategy would be to focus more on the long-term gains before taking money out versus those short-term gains under 1 year, which gets taxed at your ordinary income tax rates. So as we finish up here on taxes, one thing, if you haven't yet, get our copy of our free guide to unlocking hidden tax savings opportunities. Again, free guide to unlocking hidden tax savings opportunities. As I mentioned, taxes can be that small leak that can really impact your retirement ship throughout your future. So it's a guide of strategies to help you reduce your taxes. It's going to provide you actionable advice and a checklist to utilize, which can help you understand how to reduce what you're going to pay to the IRS and keep more of your hard-earned income, keep more of your hard-earned IRAs and 401ks in your pocket versus giving it to the IRS. You can get this free guide at lifemoneyshow.com/taxes. Again, lifemoneyshow.com/taxes. Hey, I hope that you've enjoyed today's show. If so, subscribe on your favorite podcast player as we've got new episodes regarding your retirement, regarding your taxes, regarding building wealth coming out each and every week. So with that, I look forward to our next episode and our next conversation of continuing to help you enjoy life today and being financially confident about your retirement.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Sierens Financial Management, Inc. Sierens Financial Group, Inc. is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management, LLC, AEWM, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Sierens Financial Management, Inc. are not subject to investment advisor requirements. AEWM and Sierens Financial Group, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as a sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences, including, but not limited to, a need for additional tax withholding or estimated tax payments, the loss of certain tax deductions and credits, and higher taxes on Social Security benefits and higher Medicare premiums. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA. Sierens Financial Group, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Sierens Financial Group, Inc.